It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today are Dr. Sherman Canapp and his wife, Dr. Debra Canapp. Both are veterinarians practicing orthopedic surgery and sports medicine at the Veterinarian Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Group in Annapolis Junction, Maryland. Dr. Sherman Canapp is the owner and chief of staff. He is also an orthopedic and sports medicine consultant for the National Aquarium in Baltimore, National Zoo in Washington, D.C., the Maryland Zoo, the Washington, D.C., and regional police canine units and search and rescue dogs, the TSA, NSA, and military canine units, the Washington Animal Rescue League, and many national agility, flyball, field trial, and disc dog organizations. He also started a nonprofit. He dreamed it up many years ago, and it was fully realized in 2016. That nonprofit is called Project Go, which stands for Global Orthopedics for Animals. You have satellite locations all over the world, too, yes?
We do. We're in Philly, we're in Seattle, we're in Finland and Australia, and in 2018, we're probably going to be in South Africa, Belgium, possibly China, and Canada.
And Dr. Canapp, female here, and that's hard to keep track with. In a veterinarian practice, we have that locally as well, and I know you know Greater Annapolis Veterinarian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a husband and wife team in there.
We know them.
Anyway, so yes, you were involved. You were supposed to be out doing what today?
Doing sheep herding.
Which is really cool because you have a
border collie.
Not because you have sheep.
Not my sheep.
All right, very cool. Now, there's a backstory to this, and full disclosure, I was kind of involved in that backstory. On December 19th, I was tagged in a Facebook post of the Chesapeake Canine Fund. That post said, Chesapeake Canine Fund got word today that Annapolis Fire Department Canine Rudy is in need of surgery for a tear in his leg. Canine Rudy is trained in explosive detection and has served the residents of Annapolis and surrounding communities by providing countless numbers of sweeps and security details since 2010. They put out an urgent call for fundraising in order to cover the surgery. When I was tagged on that post on social media, I put in a message to the new, at that point, spokesperson for the city of Annapolis, Susan O'Brien, and she said she would get back to me. What I did not know is that Susan's sister, Michelle, works for you all. Yeah. And so take over the story from there.
So this was that evening. There was a buzz on social media about Rudy and about the injury, and a few people texted me and messaged me, and they said, you need to check out this post that's happening with Canine Rudy, and there seems to be an injury, and possibly Project Go could get involved. And so quickly I scrolled through, identified what was happening with the Chesapeake Fund, how they were have a call for help essentially for funding. But I thought this is exactly what the mission of Project Go is all about, is to help the service animals that are in need, that have injuries like this that are very, very common. But unfortunately in our day and age, not just here in our region, but across the United States, very tight budgetary situations for these agencies. And that was the premise behind Project Go, is these animals have done so much for us, for society, and we needed a way to be able to give back and help them whenever they had time of need.
So in less than 24 hours, and this was written on Chesapeake Canine's post as an update, today being Rudy's birthday, we have all come together as a community, and we are so excited to announce the following. Dr. Sherman Canapp, chief surgeon from VOSM and Project Go, and his staff have come forward and are donating 100% of the surgical, x-ray, and therapy costs for Canine Rudy. Hats off to both of you.
Yeah, thank you. It's our pleasure, and this, they do so much to serve us, and anything we can do to give back is it's the least we can do.
And his surgery was rather time sensitive, because if he continued using that leg, more damage could be done.
Time sensitive for two reasons. The first is truly that injury, he's not able to work, and he has a special mission here in this region. And when he's not working, also his handler is not really working as well. So you have two that are essentially out of commission. The other thing is that, as many of the listeners may know, have their own dogs that may have had what we call an ACL in humans. It's a CCL in a dog. But when one knee becomes injured in a canine, the chance of the other one happening is quite high, greater than 50%. And we know that the longer they go with that initial leg injured, the higher the frequency frequency, and the quicker the other one could end up having a problem as well. So it was twofold. We really needed to get Rudy back to work, and we also wanted to try to prevent any secondary issues happening from down the road as quickly as possible.
So that surgery was done in the week, it was done in Christmas week, was it not?
Yeah, we scrambled. So we made a plea for additional funding because we really, it's so hard fundraising. I've learned that I can be the best surgeon on the planet, but I know nothing about fundraising and nonprofits. And so that's been the hardest thing. So we do a plea to try to get the capital that we need to cover the funds for a particular case, whether it's being done by us or somewhere else. It's global orthopedics, so we have centers around the world that help us, other partners. And so regardless, we do whatever we can to make sure this happens. So within the week, Rudy was in and we did the procedure.
And the estimate on how much that cost or would have cost the Annapolis Fire Department?
It's an expensive procedure. The gold standard for dogs that have a knee injury like this is a procedure called the tibial plateau leveling osteotomy. It's a lot of words, or the abbreviation is called TPLO. It's a state-of-the-art procedure that was really adopted back in the early 90s, but very, very bulletproof. They do extremely well. They can get back to full function. I've personally done over 3,000 of these. And
wow.
So it's a great procedure for high-end dogs that are active, running with their owners, hiking, working dogs, sporting dogs. And so classically around the United States, the industry and average for this probably going to start around 3,000 and go up to 6,000. So depending on if you're in New York or here in the DC, Baltimore, Maryland region or Seattle, it's going to be anywhere from that 3 to 6 range.
Biggest question, how's Rudy doing now?
Doing quite well. So the challenge with these high drive dogs is that they're high drive. And so they don't realize they have an injury in the first place. And right after the procedure, the nice thing about the TPLO is they do well very quickly, I think a little too quickly. And in Rudy's mind, he's ready to go back to work. And so the hardest part's not the surgery. Thousands of those. The hardest part is literally the aftercare of saying to this canine, okay, we have to go through the rehab program. We have to heal appropriately, get you strengthened, reconditioned, retrained. Which takes 3 to 4 months total, and then you can go back to having the zoomies and doing your work and jumping in and out of the cruiser and the SUVs and the buildings and so forth.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, more about Project Go, what it's doing, what they will be doing, and how you can help. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio today with Dr. Sherman Canapp and his wife, Dr. Debra Canapp. They're veterinarians and have a practice in Annapolis Junction. They also formed a nonprofit that is helping many animals in our area and beyond called Project Go. Tell me more about, now we touched on the National Aquarium, the zoos in the area, the state police, all the law enforcement dogs, working dogs. There's other areas that you're focusing on as well.
Correct. We have what I call 3 buckets, if you would. The largest, and I think the top of the pyramid, is the working dogs, because when they're injured, they can't serve the community. We have to get back and help them immediately so they can get back to work. The second tier is our animal rescue organizations, your SPCAs, your humane societies, all these little animal-specific like Pity Rescue and Lab Rescue and Chesapeake Rescue. They're funded through donations as well. And when an animal has an injury, say for instance our local humane societies or SPCAs, they'll get an animal from Katrina or from 911 or from all these horrible fires and hurricanes that we've had lately. They can't be adopted out to a loving family until they're healed, until they're treated. Well, they're pennies are limited as well, and they don't have the deep pockets that they unfortunately should have. And so that's our second bucket within Project Go, is to help these shelters, these rescue organizations that have a dog or a cat or an animal that has an orthopedic condition, neurological or musculoskeletal, that's very treatable, but that has to be treated before it can be adopted out to the family. The third bucket is our animal sanctuaries, our things like the National Zoo, the Maryland or Baltimore Zoo, the aquariums. Funding for them is also limited. And so when these animals have an issue orthopedically, musculoskeletally, we're there for them as well. A great little story is what we've done for the aquarium. They have a sea turtle rescue. And sea turtles, I learned, not uncommonly, will have issues where they get injury to their shoulder and an issue with their shoulder. And
it's actually called the shoulder?
Yeah, they actually have a shoulder. I didn't know turtles have a shoulder. Okay. I learned very quickly. So they reached out to me years and years ago at the National Aquarium, and they said, we have a sea turtle that has a shoulder injury. We had the CT scan done at Johns Hopkins, and we need you to try to figure out how to drop a scope into the shoulder to help the rotator cuff. And I said,
had you operated on exotics before?
I was very fortunate that I trained at University of Florida. So we did, my surgical training was there. So we did Epcot, Disney, SeaWorld, and Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
So there wasn't a
This is
bat,
right
a
up your
prairie dog,
alley. Okay.
a lion, a monkey. We would get a call every week and say, here's an exotic, figure it out. And we would figure it out. And so when I moved up to this region, they took it upon themselves from Florida to let the agencies up here know I was here.
Very cool.
And so they called me. So the aquarium calls with the turtle, and I say, well, I've never operated on a turtle. I didn't know if they had a shoulder. And they said, well, they do. So they brought me a little cadaver to practice to try to figure it out. And when I figured it out, they said, okay, now we'll go ahead and bring little Terry in. And little Terry was an endangered exotic turtle, actually. And so we had to figure out little Terry wasn't swimming correctly and was having an issue with what they believe the shoulder. CT scan confirmed it. And they needed me to figure out how to get an arthroscope or arthroscopy, a scope up into the shoulder to get samples and clean it out because I didn't know if it was cancer, infection, or just arthritis.
Right.
So we figured out a way to get fluoroscopically the scope in. We cleaned it out. We were successful, and little Terry's actually back on in the Australian exhibit at the National Aquarium.
Nice.
Since that time, we've done many, many sea turtles. Same thing, shoulders where they will get injured. They bring them to us. We do the procedure. They go back to the National Aquarium to rehab, and then they're tagged and released.
And when did VOSM open?
2005.
Okay, so once upon a time, there was a need for your services that wasn't available in this area, and you might not know this, but I do, unfortunately do, which led many in the area, including me, to have to travel to Blacksburg, Virginia, or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is a huge service you're offering, commercially, but the nonprofit, it can't be more important.
It is. There's a huge need for those three areas: the service dogs, the rescue organizations, and wildlife. The challenge is the funds. I've learned that you can have a great cause and do great work and be able to help a lot of animals, but you have to be able to have the support to do that. And that's been the hardest part of this entire nonprofit is been trying to figure out how do you do fundraising, how do you get the word out and get support. Everyone loves animals, they want to help, but really it's been trying to figure out that challenge.
So do you have a development officer, I'm guessing, or will have in the near future? You're both veterinarians, which is critical, but exactly as you said, asking for money is critical to making this go forward. Dr. Debra Canapp, is this part of what you've ever done in the past, asking people for money?
Yeah, ask.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough.
It is, and we have
It's a gift that people can do, right?
It is, and we have a wonderful board of directors, great committee members with Project Go, volunteers that help, and we actually are doing, coming up in May, we have the first annual Working Dog Conference that Project Go is hosting.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because that's a different part of your mission in
Yeah.
order to stop these injuries from happening in the
Prevention.
first place. Yes. We're going to take another short break. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole, and I'm in the studio with two superheroes because they are keeping our animals alive. Dr. Sherman Canapp and Dr. Debra Canapp, and I really appreciate what they do. Their nonprofit called Project Go is helping working dogs and other nonprofit agencies, zoos, aquariums keep their animals healthy, and when they're not, they operate on them, which is just the coolest thing. So, Project Go, first of all, how did you dream it up? Was this both of you?
Deb and I have always loved animals, worked with animals our whole lives. When we moved back to the area, so we were in Florida when I did my training, we moved back to the Maryland, D.C. region and started seeing all these working dogs coming into the clinic with injuries. And these were very common injuries: rotator cuffs, ACLs, arthritis, and spine injuries. And I'd say to the handler, the officer, or the agency, okay, here it is. This is what we need to do to treat. And they would say, it's not in our budget this year, or we can't afford that. And so what you then do as a veterinarian, you reach into your own pocket. You're going to do what you can because these animals serve us. We have to do what we can to help them. And
Were they previously put down in some cases?
What they would do, they would actually prefer to retire them and get them a new dog. But the reality is, by the time many of these shepherds and Malinois come from the Czech Republic, they come over, years of training, they've spent $20,000 to $40,000 by the time all is said and done to have a working dog that can do bomb squad, narcotics,
Right.
search and rescue, and so forth. And so it was very disheartening to me that I'm looking at a dog that's 6 years old, still has years ahead of its time to work, trained to an incredible degree, and yet they were going to retire or not do anything. And I was like, even if they retire and it's a house pet companion then for the handler, it's supposed to be healthy, and it's carrying its leg around three-legged. So I said, we have to do something. So really the straw that broke the camel's back is there was a high-profile dog from Washington, D.C., can't say the agency, but works, everyone would understand, and I got a plead for help from that agency in 2015. It was a rotator cuff. This is a dog that guards some particularly important areas in D.C., and they could not afford even diagnostics. And I said, something's got to give. We have to do something. And that's where in the back of my mind, I said, maybe we can form a non-for-profit to actually help these animals when they're in need. And reached out to Josie Schaefer, who's associate with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. I knew she knew a lot about fundraising, and other people that now are on our board and committees. And I said, can you help me? Because I may be an okay veterinarian or surgeon, but I know nothing about what I'm getting into here.
Right.
But I have a vision to help these working dogs, rescue organizations and wildlife sanctuaries. Can you help me with that? And we formed this great unity, great synergistic group. And now it's all about how do we get the funds to help more animals. Yeah.
So in order to, and that's just, it's an amazing story. I just love it. In order to prevent these injuries from happening to begin with, you're now doing some educational seminars.
Correct. Our first mission is truly to help the animals, but I think even more importantly is, could we have prevented some of this in the first place? So we're doing the first annual Working Dog Conference. It's going to be in Frederick, Maryland, May 17th. Mm-hmm. Anyone that has a working canine, that is an enthusiast of working canines, veterinarians, technicians, anyone really in the industry or that's just interested in coming and hearing it, is welcome to attend. It's going to be a whole morning lecture series on prevention. How do we tell these handlers how to warm their dogs up, stretch them, do certain exercises so that it doesn't happen in the first place, maybe some training tips as well. The afternoons, all demonstrations and wet labs. So we'll actually teach them how to do some of these things hands-on. Our center...
Wait, you can't use your own dog who is actually a doctor?
A working dog,
yeah.
not saving anybody.
But you do some of these exercises before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, so it's all about prevention that day, and so we're going to we have agencies from around the United States that are coming, many locally, and so that way we can explain what we're seeing in the field, how it's occurring, and how we can prevent it.
Super cool. If people wanted more information on that, where can they go?
Right on our website, so www.project-go.org.
Okay. Going forward, you will have constant need for help because there are constantly injuries to either a shelter animal, a working dog, or beyond, right?
There are. We receive requests weekly, and sometimes we have to say no because our piggy bank is only so large, and we help as many as we can, but we've had some shelters and organizations call and they say we need help, and if we don't have the funds, we can't necessarily help, and so that's why the fundraising is so critical. For
people that are interested in helping you with that, how do they do that?
Same thing. Go to our website. There's a way to get involved. They can reach out to Andrea Smith, who's our director, but there's also ways right on our website that they can go, and Facebook page as well, where they can donate straight online.
Project Go is also looking for volunteers to help, and to get in touch with Andrea, how can they do that?
Same thing. Her email's right on the website and on the Facebook page, and we're constantly looking for volunteers because fundraising activities, that's really high on our mission, so we can continue to help animals. And I'm learning just right here in the Annapolis area, there's so many great animal enthusiasts that are also doing fundraising efforts for animals. So we can, it's so synergistic. We can work together and try to, help so many more.
And you recently met with the SPCA here, right?
Yeah.
So you'll be doing some work with them,
Correct.
hopefully?
Correct.
That's just awesome. Andrea Smith, by the way, her email address, asmith@project-go.org. One more time on the website?
www.project-go.org.
And you were also training veterinarians from all over the world on some of the techniques you've developed.
We are. So what we've done, the reason we call it global orthopedics is because this hasn't just happened in the United States, this is worldwide. So we have centers around the world that are also Project Go locations. So if we get a phone call from somebody on the West Coast or in Australia or in Europe that has a service dog or a rescue or an exotic, we can localize or identify one of our Project Go locations, the doctors there that can help. And they're highly trained in the same thing that we are. So they have to be able to do high-end sports medicine, orthopedics, rehabilitation therapy, neurology, regenerative medicine.
Do either of you ever get any sleep?
No.
Okay, well, that's didn't have to think about that much. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to come and honor to be involved in this, so thank you.
Thanks. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.